We have heard you boldly commending the CDF on his stance on corruption.
You, the media, have reported, and you have seen it, that he has had a strong stance against corruption in the forces, and you have seen his numerous action, and we applaud him on that. We applaud him on that for coming out and warning against corruption, but also not just warning, but also taking action. And we are ready to partner with him, especially using his civic component to ensure that there's a civil-military relationship with the military to, change the mindset of our society, but also find ways on how we can work together. Undermining security, stability, and prosperity through unethical behaviors. This choice of topic is very timely because we've seen so many unethical practices in our society that have permeated every sector, almost every sector in our society. So it's important to bring these realities to the military so that they know, they are aware, and they can relate to some of them, and of course sharing them here at a strategic level or at a strategic course is very important, because the knowledge they have acquired is taken back and utilized in their day-to-day lives for the betterment of our society. So I'm happy to be here to do that, and it was a wonderful lecture. Like you all observed, the officers are awoke, like it is said. They are aware of what is happening in their society, and they are committed in doing much more for their country.
Your presentation was rotating on ethical, on ethics. Why? And then may you explain as to why you came up?
I talked about ethical conduct, one, because I was asked to talk about ethical conduct. But also there's a nexus between ethical conduct and corruption. You are unethical, you engage into corruption practices. That is why we see the many instances of corruption in our society, because there are so many unethical behaviors by leaders. So we also are concerned as leaders about the moral decadence in our society, and therefore we had to paint a picture for the officers to see what is happening out there and what the efforts the government is putting in place to address it, but also to call upon them to join the fight against corruption in their respective work.
Why is it important to the country and to the civilians?
It's important extremely important. You see, corruption is bad in every sector, but it is devastating if it joins the military. It is so bad, because a military that has been infiltrated by corruption has a ripple effect on society. We see everything else that has happened throughout the world, the instabilities in the different countries in the world. First, there was compromise in the military. So the military has a very big role to play through their civic interventions, through their leaderships, to ensure that there are minimal instances of corruption. Imagine a time where there is poor procurement of poor or substandard equipment for the military. Imagine a time where there are ghost soldiers, where soldiers are not paid, or a commander thinks he has a battalion but he's only commanding a platoon and he's unaware. So it's important. It's important that the military avoids unethical behaviors that can lead into corruption instances that will affect the country, because they are supposed to protect the country against external threats and internal threats. So if there are compromise, then it becomes a big problem for our country.
The office,
Thank
has
you.
had, the office has had questions, like the one who was saying, how can you investigate a minister when he's in office? Others were saying that they try to teach manners in their children, but when they go to school, they come back when everything is erased away. How are you assisting them?
The first question, like I explained, you can't have your own cake and eat it. Now, you, the society that is complaining about these leaders, haven't you voted them back again into power? It's a democratic dispensation. If you decide to re-elect the very people that were in the courts of law and you overwhelmingly vote them, what is anybody supposed to do? We work with what you give us. But of course also these leaders come from the very society that we're complaining about. So we are the leaders, you have a reflection of the society they come from. So we must do our best to uphold ethics at a personal level, at a professional level, and at a society level, so that everybody can say this is bad and this is good, and that people learn to glorify what is good and not glory into what is bad. Not to, making sin popular, evil popular. Unfortunately, sometimes we paint a picture where evil appears to be more popular than good. But continuous civic education and, involvement for every leader is going to change the course of things in our country.
We have heard you boldly commending the CDF on his stance on corruption.
You, the media, have reported, and you have seen it, that he has had a strong stance against corruption in the forces, and you have seen his numerous action, and we applaud him on that. We applaud him on that for coming out and warning against corruption, but also not just warning, but also taking action. And we are ready to partner with him, especially using his civic component to ensure that there's a civil-military relationship with the military to, change the mindset of our society, but also find ways on how we can work together. We collaborate with many institutions, and I'm sure that the military is one of the major key institutions that we can collaborate with in the fight against corruption. This is collaboration in its own. We have been invited here. He has invited us here to give this lecture to his men, and we are ready to support him.
Madam, but welcome Uganda.
Before Uganda, you talked of lecturing there well. I just want to
So it's a discussion. You remember the president had guided on that for security reasons. We wouldn't want to lay bare our military, our forces. But so it's something that we're going to discuss with the leadership of the military and see how to go by it, where they declare. The president was concerned on how and where they declare. So that is, something that can be worked out. So we're going to have the discussion with the military and we see how that can.
Fellow Ugandans, the Uganda Communication Commission would like to address you regarding the responsible use of communication platforms in light of the recent developments. We are aware of the Constitutional Court decision that annulled certain provisions of the Computer Misuse Amendment Act 2022. Following this ruling, there have been reports of increased misuse of social media and other digital platforms. Some users appear to have been misled into believing that there is currently no other law governing the use of computer systems in Uganda. We wish, therefore, to clarify that this is not the case. While the court annulled specific sections of the law, such as those relating to unauthorized access, hate speech, unsolicited and malicious information, and misuse of social media, many other provisions of the Computer Misuse Act remain fully in force. As a matter of emphasis, we would like to emphasize that the annulment of those said sections of the Computer Misuse Amendment Act 2022 obviously does not sanction or condone such behavior or misuse of computer platforms. Hate speech, unsolicited and malicious information, misuse of social media is still morally, ethically, and legally unacceptable behavior that can be prosecuted under other existing laws on cyber harassment, cyber stalking, electronic fraud, and other such related laws. Similarly, although certain provisions on libel under the Penal Code were annulled, the rest of the Penal Code Act remains applicable. In addition, other laws, including the Uganda Communications Act, the Data Protection and Privacy Act, and the Children's Act, continue to regulate the use of communication platforms and protect the rights of individuals. We therefore urge all users to exercise responsibility in their use of digital platforms. Let us use technology to advance our socio-economic well-being and not to harm others, violate their rights, or undermine peace and security of our country. We also encourage the public to report any misuse of communication platforms to the Uganda Communications Commission or the Uganda Police Force. Let us all play our part in ensuring a safe, respectful, and secure digital environment for everybody. I thank you.
I laughed at him. I think he was the best student at NDC. I said that was bad for him because now he's going to be stuck here. So if you're working, you better work not so hard if you don't end up like Dr. Kusasira. But it's a pleasure for me, certainly. Sandy. It's a pleasure for me to be here this afternoon at the Defense College. I'm very nostalgic. I have so many memories, beautiful memories of working with the forces, and I am who I am because of what the forces inculcated in me. I'm going to briefly introduce the people I came with. It's only kind and decent for me to do so. So I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, you are before generals and other senior officers of the Defense Forces. You can come quickly at the front so that you meet important people that you may either arrest or work with when they fall on the other side of the law. But I'm sure you will not arrest them because these are seasoned public officers. Okay, introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon, distinguished officers, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dwaira Gerald. I serve as Director, Research, Education and Advocacy at the Inspectorate of Government. I'm happy to be
part of what is on the agenda for us, but before I dive into that, let me bring you greetings from the Inspector General of Government. She's the Honorable Justice Hajat Aisha Naluze. Like Dr. Kusasira said, we are two Deputy Inspectors General of Government, and our roles are constitutional, operationalized by the Inspectorate of Government Act. In brief, our roles are three. That is to ensure that there's strict adherence to the rule of law and principles of natural justice in administration. What do I mean? We ensure that rules and processes and systems are followed. If there are procedures, it's like ensuring that the code of conduct in service is followed, because we believe that if we follow rules and procedures and regulations as is, then we'll have fewer instances of corruption. Number two, to foster the elimination of corruption in our society. As the Inspectorate of Government, we fight corruption. We do this through investigations, we arrest. Unlike the police that has to, prosecute through the DPP, for us, we do all. We can arrest, investigate, and as well prosecute the corrupt. Number three is to ensure that we implement the leadership code of conduct Public officers, the portal is already open. If you're a public officer, you must declare your assets, incomes, and liabilities at a time as this. After the end of this month, if you have not declared, then we will take you to the Leadership Court Tribunal, and you will have to explain why you have not declared your assets, incomes, and liabilities. We also have other constitutional responsibilities that include advocacy, ensure that we spread the values of constitutionalism. And this is one of the roles I'm playing this afternoon. I came with the director that is in charge of research, education, and advocacy. Many a times when people see us in society, they say, instead of fighting corruption, they are here talking. But this is part of it, creating awareness in public, and emphasizing the role of the citizens in the fight against corruption. We have done so much work, as you have seen, and I hope that at the end of this lecture, you'll be able to pat the Inspectorate of Government at the back and say, well done, faithful servants. This afternoon, I was asked to talk about the undermining of security, stability, and prosperity by unethical practices. May I also state again that I am deeply grateful to the National Defense College of Uganda for the opportunity to address you, ladies and gentlemen. The last time I complained, Dr. Kusa said that the ladies were very few. There has been a negligible improvement. I hope we can do much, much better, because research has shown that when women are in leadership, then things are. I hope the men agree. Please clap for us. There's only one hand clap. So anyhow, I'm happy that there's an increase in the number of women. I think the first intake had one lady. You've maintained two. There was Nakalema and Flavia. Okay, so you're not doing very well, but it's okay. We are grateful that you at least added one more lady. So institutions like the UPDF are essential in cultivating the strategic mindset required by leaders responsible for safeguarding our nation and region and all emerging threats. Having worked in the defense and security sector in the formative stages of my career, I have a very deep admiration for the men and women in uniform, informed by my direct observation of the sacrifices you make for the rest of us to keep safe. Please clap for yourself. The theme I was asked about to speak about, the undermining of security, stability, and prosperity by unethical practices, is exceptionally pertinent and timely. At first glance, this may appear to be a governance issue or perhaps an economic one, but I would like to suggest something more fundamental to you officers. Unethical practices are not merely a moral problem. They are not only a governance challenge, they are a strategic national security threat. And by the time I finish this presentation, you will come up with suggestions on how this can be addressed. Many of you will recall the conclusion of Uganda's National Defense Review in the early 2000s, which asserted that the primary threats to Uganda's long-term security would shift away from the purely military nature. They would increasingly encompass non-military factors such as poverty, joblessness, food scarcity, inequality, and governance deficits. The government of Uganda has since made considerable strides in tackling these structural vulnerabilities. Initiatives like universal primary education, infrastructure expansion, regional recovery efforts in areas like northern Uganda, and economic empowerment programs have been instrumental in restoring hope and opportunities in previously conflict-ridden regions that are known to you. Improved economic access, education opportunities, and state presence have profoundly contributed to the stability we enjoy today. When citizens, especially the youth, have access to education, employment, and dignity, they are far less likely to be drawn into forces of stability. This should be of concern for us because over 78% of our citizens are in the youthful age. Despite this progress against traditional security risks, a stealthy and escalating threat is emerging within our society. The widespread normalization of unethical practices And in my considered opinion, and shared by many others, if not decisively addressed, this threat has the capacity to roll back the substantial gains we have achieved in security, stability, and national development, or slow down and in fact still the accelerated growth we need to achieve the government's stated ambition to grow the economy tenfold in the next decade. Now we're going to try and understand the ethics and unethical practices and where the crisis is. I'm going to attempt to clarify and contextualize this concept of ethics and, for that matter, unethical practices. Lisa, you need to hide that so that the officers, I want this to be interactive, so I want them to define for me what they believe are ethics. How do we define ethics? And if I know you, it is going to be worse for you because I'm going to call you out. Colonel Ganza. What do you understand by ethics?
Thank you, ma'am. To me, ethics is all about behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir. What is judicious and what is not? They are guiding compass or the conscience of an individual, organization, or society. They therefore operate across various domains. 1, personal ethics, individual moral standards, like you said. What do you stand for? You as Colonel Ganza, what guides you? What gives you direction in what you do? What do you believe in? If I ask Colonel Grace, she would say she's guided by the word of God. Huh? she's guided by her strong belief in the Christian principles. What guides you as an individual? Personal ethics. You, what guides you? What makes you do certain things and not do other things? Individual moral standards. Professional ethics, rules governing conduct in specific fields, military law, public service. When you talk about professional ethics, these are rules that govern conduct in specific fields. The military has a specific code of conduct that defines what is good and bad, together with the consequences of what happens when you break the code of conduct. I'm happy that I contributed to the prosecution with General Kachungu of some of the officers that broke the military code of conduct. So I have a fair understanding of what this is about. How do you behave? And the military code of conduct is different from the civilian public service code of conduct. Let me tell you something. The civilians work 8 to 5. And the first time I went, because I worked with the military for over 16 years, so the first time I went to the Inspectorate of Government, at 5 I still have work, I am working, but you call and there's nobody, everybody has left because it is 5. So it took me some time to understand that now the military is different from the civilian way of doing things. For them, they work time and the military works work. Code of conduct. You know, you can't leave your kubwa in office, but the military, in the civilian world, it's different. Even the lawyers have a strict code of conduct. Lawyers are supposed to behave in a certain way. If you go to court and you're dressed in colors like I am, I tried to put on green because I wanted to, relate with you. But I'm surprised that everybody was in a suit. If you went to court now, if a judge walked in here, they would actually think that you were the lawyers and I am the one who is not a land friend because of my code of conduct. We are supposed to put on calm colors, blue, gray, brown. That's our code of conduct as lawyers. And if you appeared like me or like Lisa in court, they will tell you, the judge will say, I can't see you. They say, no, I'm here. No, they say, I can't see you. It means that the way you appeared is not the code expected of you. So breach of these codes have repercussions even in public service. There are public service codes of conduct that determine what is acceptable in the conduct of public duty. General Tukachungwa, can you give us some of the examples of the code of the military? Code. what is in their code of conduct, what is expected of the military. I learned this from you, so certainly this should be on your fingertips. General Tukachungra is one of the ethical people that I know, and if his bosses are here, they could give him some marks, because I worked with him in Bombo at the Divisional Court Martial. He was my first boss, and every good thing that you see in me, he's the one who taught me. The bad things I have learned along the way. I hope I'll get at a point where I will tell you what I learned from him. I remember, I will tell you. So first tell us code of conduct of the military. Just give us a few examples.
Code of conduct of the military, we have a schedule which is attached to our UPDF Act, and clearly stipulates how we relate the army to the civilians, and even between the officers and men. The schedule attached to the UPDF Act.
You want to
For example, they say higher ranks should respect the lower ranks, and vice versa. It also provides that when you don't take any item for a civilian free, you must pay for it. Then you should also not commit offenses against the public. So it really puts the military officers and the men in a line that they must behave as a people's army to be exemplary in their work.
Thank you. Any other lawyer? Yeah, that's done, sir. You're there too?
And Lydia.
Where's Lydia? Lydia, please give us other examples of code of conduct.
The code of conduct as Amanda said earlier, it is attached to the schedule, but now it relates on the way you relate with the public, the way you relate with the soldier to soldier, officer to soldier, or soldier to officer. So one of them, when maybe, let me talk in terms of dressing. There are also codes in terms of dressing. There are combat dresses. There are, when you're going for fighting, there's a way you're supposed to dress. That is at a lower rank. Maybe the way the weapon handling and how do soldiers handle weapons.
Even the way you stand.
The way you stand.
What stands on this side?
Yes. The way you relate generally, it comes, even the eating habits.
That you have to honor your leaders, you stand up. In the civilian world, it's different.
The saluting, the greeting, the way maybe
must salute your
leaders, you salute the leaders, and the other way.
Thank you, Council. You've explained it very well, so you have saved Kanuganza. Usually encumbered in our culture, there are norms that we should do, how you dress, how you treat others. All these govern the behaviors of society. If you're a Muganda woman, you must kneel down while you're greeting your elders. Culture, you know, it's unwritten, but everybody knows that when you see an elder, you must, honor them with respect by getting down. Ethics are a bedrock for trust between individuals, institutions, and the state. That is the societal contract that glues societies together, that brings harmony, stability, and sustainable development, and by extension, security. We have issues in our society today because we are losing, we're not yet there, but we are losing the moral fiber. What you expected back in the day, you never expected a younger person to answer you back. And I think that code is just in the military, because rarely would you find a private answering back, their supervisor or an officer. But here today, what happens out there, it's different. So that's why we must ensure that if there is any institution that must maintain the ethical code of conduct, then it has to be the military. If we lose it in the military, then we will lose it everywhere, elsewhere. So social contract is the unwritten contract between the state and the people. This is what binds, what builds, that makes people governable, makes people pay their taxes because they expect the state to do something. Without this trust, effective governance is compromised. That when we pay taxes, the government is going to be able to construct schools, to build roads, to ensure that the health centers are functional, to provide quality education. So I'm going to try and dive into the nature of unethical practices. Unethical practices are actions that violate acceptable moral standards, professional rules, or legal norms for the purposes of personal or group advantage. Therefore, unethical practices are those that go against the personal, professional, and societal norms that we talked about. And those are the ones I'm going to address. These include legal transgressions, but also encompass behaviors that are morally reprehensible, even when not explicitly illegal. We know that some things that are legal are not necessarily, and you're going to give me examples, something is legal, but it's not necessarily moral. It's legal, but it's not the moral thing to do. And some things that are moral are not necessarily legal. Good things, morally acceptable in our society, but they are not legal. These ones, my colleagues in the military, the lawyers, don't need to answer this. Please put up your hands, and if you don't put up your hands, I'll just pick on you. So I want you to tell me the things you believe they are legal, but when it comes to society or personal or professional conduct, they're not morally right. I'll think about something. Cowardice in action. I first heard of that offense from Jono to Kachungra. That people, that if you are if you are in war and you cowardize at a front and you cowardize, morally, is it wrong? It is not, because you also have to save your life, not so. But legally, so that's one of the examples I had. Cowardice in action. Another one that really interested me back in the day was rumor mongering. But if you're a rumor monger, you can be charged in the courts of law, in the court martials. So other examples you can think of, they are not necessarily moral, and sometimes, but they are illegal. They are legal, but they are not moral. You can't be a coward in action because troops will die. But morally, everybody wants their life. Or if you see Al-Shabaab is coming towards you, you can lose the last bullet. You have to what? Clear yourself. Okay, so examples that I can think of about in our society of unethical practices, we have abuse of authority, people who abuse their privileged positions using forces to take them to their private farms. The forces are not supposed to guard your private farms. Intimidating the citizens. But we really want to thank the president that back in the day, in the other armies, used not to happen. But today, in fact, it's the civilians that intimidate the forces. Am I lying? Very unfortunately, our civilians are very indisciplined. They intimidate the forces. I have seen them. Somebody pointing at an officer who is even armed. So it's both good and bad that the military now is totally a pro-people army, but then we need to work also on the moral conduct of our civilians, not to take that for granted. Delayed decision making, you are a leader, how you abuse authority. Abuse of authority is one of the offenses that we prosecute as Inspectorate of Government. You are in a position of power, you have to make a decision, and you ask people to come back tomorrow. Koma wencha. That is very common in the public service. You have the power to make a decision, but you take your time because it is within your purview. That is abuse of authority. Dishonesty and lack of accountability has unfortunately permeated all levels of our society. Dishonesty in our homes, in your farms, you see officers, your shamba boys, telling you got 20 liters of milk, yet there were 40 or 60. And that's how it breeds, the dishonesty. Most of the people that are dishonest or are corrupt in our society, it started from home. It doesn't start from, it doesn't start from the workplaces. Dishonesty grows. I want to honor General Tukachungura. I remember when we were back in Bombo, the earlier days when we had just started work, some dishonest people wanted to deny me my allowance. He refused. He said, no, civilian also must get their allowance. And that inculcated it in me. Yes, you need to clap if you are to clap. Because those are simple things. Simple things. It's very simple because how much was it then? About 150 or 200. But I pass on the same value to my staff today. But imagine if Tukachungura had shown me that it was okay for me to, to be denied what I owed. I would pass it on. So this dishonesty that is between our children, we see it at home, our children see it. You are on your phone, you're telling, I'm in town, I'm here. I'm on Kampala Road, you're home. They are watching you, they're seeing what you're doing. Let me bring it closer to your workplace. Here, these people that are around us, the junior officers, they are watching you. What Nkubwa is doing is what they are going to do as well. They pass it you indirectly. If I tell people that if you must do something wrong, do it alone. Let nobody watch you, because once they see you do that, they'll again pass it on. Dishonesty and lack of accountability has permeated everywhere, in our homes, in our churches. You see what's happening in the churches these days? Dishonesty. Conflict of interests, that you cannot make fair judgment because either you know the person or are related to the person. We all have moments where we are conflicted, all of us. Even judges have moments where they are conflicted. But have you declared it? People must come to you believing that they will get justice. That if I report to a Fande commander, then he will do the right thing. There's a time when the population was, President Tuyambe, President Jango Tuyambe, President Tuyambe. That was a wrong signal. Why? Because society had lost trust in the institutions and they believed that it's only the president who could help them. That is wrong. Exploitation of public trust, while often intertwined, corruption is the most central manifestation of this broader ethical crisis. The core manifestation of unethical practices, corruption is frequently defined narrowly as the abuse of public office for private gain. Public office for your own gain. However, for a complete understanding of this security implication, a broader perspective is necessary. Corruption is the abuse of entrusted power, responsibility, or position for personal or group benefit at the expense of others, be it the public, business owners, or intended beneficiaries. This lens acknowledges that corruption exists in the public sector, the private sector, and even within communities. So it's no longer just about public resources, but also to those who have been entrusted to any form of responsibility. Even the Bible tells us that to whom much is given, Colonel Grace, to whom much is given, much is expected. I thought Colonel Grace was your pastor here. So much is expected. We have abused our offices. The former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan once said, corruption is an insidious plague that has a wide range of corrosive effects on societies. He went on to say it undermines democracy, slows economic development, and contributes to governmental instability. And in a short while, I'm going to show you why corruption is so bad. While unethical practices are so bad, but even deadly when it comes to the forces. The statement by Kofi Annan captures the essence of our discussion, and we're going to bring this discussion closer to reality. Corruption practices are no longer isolated instances in our society. Unethical practices are no longer isolated. They are increasingly visible in many aspects of our everyday life. Lisa, you put that down. I just want them, you put this down. I want them to give me examples, and everybody is going to give me an example of unethical practices that you have seen in our everyday lives. And who has less work or half your work is not giving it as much effort. Why? Because you are maintaining your strict code of conduct. You know that you're maintaining a strict code of conduct. I agree there are challenges with staffing, the wage bill, and what have you. But even before their salaries were increased, that was there, and they worked. So what is the problem now? That with the increment in salary, they must increase the number of staff to work?
Because the population is growing. The health center now needs 10 doctors. You've left it still with one.
Two. They will work. I'll give you another example. Let's leave because he's defending his sector. I'm sure Dr. Kusasira would say the same, and his hand is up, but I will not go there. But what about the prosecutors? The prosecutors in the office of the DPP also had a salary increment. Has corruption gone down?
No, actually they do it. They are now more expensive.
They are now even more expensive because they have. So I don't think the numbers. Yes, it's a challenge, but I don't think that's the main problem.
I want you to come in on the side of health workers. They are terrible since they increase their prices.
True that. Please, and he's being honest, so you're not being very...
I'm sure you will go to Guru Hospital now, you will go to Aruba, they have consultants, but they are in Kampala Imaging Center.
True.
They are in IHK. The consultant attached photo having 3 days in Kampala. I mean, if that's not even a lack of ethics, I think. It's criminal.
It's criminal. I think somebody there said that they are now investigating. They are investing what they got. What did we find? We visited Mayuge. What was the name of the doctor? If you could share with them. Mayuge Health Center. I mean, he had a health center. He has a health center, and he's also the government.
Should I share his name?
No, because there are people with cameras. You may not share his name, but you give them the story.
Okay, madam. So he was the medical superintendent of Mayuge Hospital.
Health center, is it health center?
It was a health center for. So he was in charge of the health center. Now the health center did not have any blood at all. Yes, he had a private clinic that was...
That had blood.
With blood.
Then at his health center, at his private health center, that is even unethical, because you see, blood is not bought. It's free. Huh? So how do you explain a medical superintendent who has blood in his private clinic, but in a government hospital there's no blood? We will discuss, and you will see that much as... No, certainly we. No, we came with him. We arrested him, we interdicted him. What have you done, Medical Council? You tell them what they do at Medical Council. Because if I apportion blame this today in this lecture, nobody will pick anything. At Medical Council, what did they do? They wrote to us a lot of English, but you see. What has happened to that doctor? Is he back to office after the interdiction?
Yes, he is.
He's back. because the law provides that you can interdict for a certain time. But these are unethical behaviors that must be spoken. We must speak to the hearts and minds of Ugandans to see what these unethical instances are going to cause us as a country. Engineers compromising the quality of roads, bridges and public infrastructure. A road is built within 10 years, I think I've gone far. Give it 5 years? 5 years, they're already potholes. As if they are sure one day they will not pass that, they won't use that road. Short-sighted decisions informed by greed come back to haunt us. Many of our citizens today are short-sighted. Public officers, they don't see far, they don't think about tomorrow, what their actions are going to cause them as individuals, but also as a community. Contractors receiving public funds, but delivering substandard work. Public officers who are bribed to award contractors. Kickbacks have become kickbacks. Now I investigated Kitezi landfill. Kitezi never took place, the landfill was never constructed because every contractor who came, to bid, the kickback was too much. Kickback, you don't think about your country. You're all, thinking about what you can put in your stomach, what is in it for you. Even the money that was given to maintain the landfill was never maintained. If you are given 3 billion per year, was that per year, Lisa? 3 billion to maintain a landfill because you had to compact it and you don't do that. What happens? Today you have to carry the guilt of people who died. You may not be in the courts of law, but if you were the contractor or if you were the person that was supposed to do that, you carry the blood of the person, of the people that died. You certainly pay at one point, either through your children or grandchildren, but you pay. Those are the numerous cancers you hear of. Person is healthy, one day wakes up with cancer and is dying. Because you did something when you had the power to do the right thing, but you were very unethical. Kitezi was a very sad story for me, having been involved in its investigation. There was no maintenance of the landfill. That's unethical. If it had been maintained with that 3 billion per year, then there would never have been a collapse of a landfill. I doubt it would have happened. Well, the rubbish would have escalated and other issues, but it would never have, degenerated to what it led to. Poorly constructed roads undermine public confidence in government. These are not small issues. A poorly constructed bridge is not simply a financial loss. It can lead to loss of lives. It can disrupt economic activity. It can undermine public confidence in government. But unethical practices are not limited to the public sector also. They're also in the private sector, as you will see. When the citizen loses confidence in government, then they become ungovernable. And most of our citizens want to just service delivery. You see them complaining, it's because of services. If they're going to go to public service, they're going to go to district service commissions, and they have to pay for jobs. They have to pay for them. It is known how much a doctor will have to pay or a teacher has to pay to and these are their fathers and their mothers in the communities. So what has gone wrong? Moral decadency. The issue of morals in our society must be a concern for everyone. It is bad. Even in the private sector, we see fraud within the banks and financial institutions, land grabbing within families. It is very sad when you see parents fighting with their children. A popular, one of the rich men in our societies died recently. Is it from Kanungu? I didn't want to mention the name. I was talking about where he comes from. But you see son taking parents to court, goes back to the moral fiber. This never used to happen. You only benefited what your parents gave you. But if your children see that you grab anything and you don't get time to teach them, you are just busy amassing wealth. You must have as much as you can. They see you, the children see you. So when you leave, it becomes very easy for them to fight their own parents, because a child should know that what is yours is not theirs. They're not entitled. But we're bringing up entitled children. Unethical. These are unethical behaviors that we have. We are passing them on to our children. And no wonder the society has degenerated when it comes to ethics. Employees stealing from employers. Farm managers diverting agricultural produce. Domestic workers engaging in theft. Officers, when these behaviors become widespread, society begins to experience something extremely dangerous, the normalization of dishonesty. It becomes normal. Nobody, we've had people who have come to see us in office, and at the end of the day, they touch their pocket. Madam, I say, what is that? Abakungu government tebalabirawo. Can you imagine? This is what our citizens say. Say, go chigira, anti nagende no ne bansaba sente. Let us consider the magnitude of the challenge with some numbers. You can see globally, over $1 million US are paid in bribes every year. But I also think about the innocent activities in schools that we have powers to stop. You have seen schools, prefects, just prefects, giving sweets, giving money, and you parents give that money.
They are just campaigns.
They are just campaigns. So what is going to come when it comes to a national level? What is going to happen? Corruption costs the global economy over 5% of global GDP, and these are macro numbers, and not evenly spread out, but in Africa, where governance structures are weak, the economies are not developed, because the estimates by OECD suggest that we lose over 125 billion, like you have seen, every year to corruption. You cannot govern people whose trust you do not have. It becomes difficult. Yesterday I was at a function, and sadly we were playing the national anthem, and a few people stood up. People should have, when they hear the national anthem, should be eager to stand up and honor their country and, and be happy. But because of the instances of corruption and inequalities in our societies, you find that people lose trust in their leaders. So they don't even honor their leaders. When they see their leader, they don't get that, the young people say, the vibe to honor their leaders. Some analysis estimate financial leakages of up to $580 billion annually through corruption and illicit financial flows. At the Inspectorate of Government, we carried out a study in 2021 on the cost of corruption, which indicated that we lose close to 10 trillion every year to corruption. Of course, people misunderstood this figure because they took it in normative terms against the budget. But what we actually meant is that different forms of corruption can be quantified. For instance, if there's a teacher who absents themselves 15 times in a month out of the 20 days they have to be in school, and they are there in these rural areas, there are teachers who are hardly in class. So how much can that cost a country? Because you are being paid. So we did not mean that the budget of 40 trillion and then you take away 10 trillion. No, that's not what we meant. We meant we quantified the losses. In a tax collector who is undervaluing the tax, how much would the government lose if we were doing the right thing? The money that is meant to build roads or military capability and national resistance is all being diverted in corruption. If that money could be diverted to build schools, hospitals, roads, military capability, and national resistance, our country would be very, very far, and all of us would enjoy. Another alarming statistics, according to Transparency International, nearly 2/3 of countries face high risk of corruption within their defense and security sectors. This is why corruption is increasingly viewed not simply as an economic problem, but a strategic security threat. Corruption shouldn't be accepted in any sector. Corruption must not be. But corruption in the defense sector is very, very dangerous. And I'm sure I'm talking to the converted. You know this better than even myself. It is very dangerous. Defense or security is the vanguard of any state. It's what defends the state from external threats, but also from within. If you allow corruption to permeate and influence the decisions that you make, the equipment that you buy, and therefore reduce your capability, then the state is left vulnerable to infiltration. The state will then collapse from within or externally. We have an example of Iran. The Mossad had infiltrated the inner circle. That's now public news. You know that. I don't know if they have TVs. Dr. Fusasa, do they have TVs here when they're here, the students? They do. So this was human intelligence, not technology. The case is also, of course, also of Venezuela. This is on the internet. You can see why it is very critical that if we must accept or be complacent with corruption anywhere, it cannot be in the military, because a country is as strong as its military. Why unethical practices constitute a national threat? Maybe we can have better discussion on this. Let me not rush through, since I'm already telling you what you know better than me. Yes, General Tukachungra. Becomes extremely high, where a lot of money would have been channeled in other areas, including the military, which becomes wasted in operational areas. That money is wasted in operational areas. So public trust and state legitimacy cannot be compromised at all if you have to be devolved. If our country must be devolved, then we have to ensure that the trust, that the public has confidence in the institutions of government, but most especially the military and the security agencies. Then also weakening of state institutions. Beyond the security agencies, unethical systems degrade institutions by substituting merit with patronage. That need not be explained, but it is very dangerous. When you have people who are in positions of authority, not on merit, it affects the rest of the organizations that they lead. B, lowering professional standard helps to maintain good quality services. Imagine we had a situation where our doctors cheat exams to qualify. Doctor, you recall that there was a certain university that wanted to be, what is it called? They wanted to be accredited, and they were having medical students that had O's, had F's, had a principal pass. And of course, it's easy to get away with that, because if you bribe a few unethical leaders, then I think it's easier for you to have, it's better, you would rather have a person who is not educated, who is unethical, than having an educated person who is unethical. That's all.
You have a clever people.
Absolutely. You imagine a shopkeeper who is unethical, how much more harm can they cause in society? But imagine a doctor who is unethical. What would happen? Distorting decision-making processes. Imagine those who are supposed to make decisions, don't make them in good faith, making decisions that benefit individuals, fighting others. If I can't get it, this one must get it. Unethical behavior in our societies, everywhere. Fighting good people in society. Rumor mongering that me and General Tukachunga used to prosecute in the military. General, we prosecuted some. General is just smiling, you can't talk. But rumor mongering, I think now I appreciate it more, being at the level of governance where I am, that rumor mongering can be very deadly for any society. It can be very deadly. And we thank God that the security agencies are there to investigate. Otherwise, you can lose the whole battalion out of rumor mongering. some of the unethical behaviors that should not be heard of in the forces. This results in a diminished capacity to deliver services for security organs. Consequences include compromised procurement, intelligence leakages, and reduced operational readiness, which all are consequences of unethical behaviors. Fueling grievances and societal tensions, unethical behavior inherently generates perceptions of injustice and systemic inequality. Frustration and disillusionment arise when the system is viewed as rigged. Frustration, you don't want to work with people who are frustrated. You want to work with people who look forward to coming to work every day. Even for you as officers, I know order in order, but you also must win the hearts and minds of your officers and men that you're leading. If you just have them as, because they have no option but to be there, then you have unfortunate instances that we have had in the past. So, must be ethical. As leaders, you must be ethical at all times. Even if you're not ethical, you must be seen to be ethical. Be seen to be ethical because it has a ripple effect on your output. These deep grievances become fertile ground for exploitation by populist political figures. When you have very big challenges in society, some people will come up with very easy solutions, and they get support by inciting people, blackmailing, misleading the public. The things about populist leaders, they exploit grievances with unattainable, unachievable solutions. If a population has a lot of grievances, they are easily gullible. There is a famous populist leader in our society. We will increase the salaries of all civil servants. On which economy? Which economy can do that? The policemen must, have flats, must live in flats. This Mama India Polo will happen no more when I have that. But they are created by society. When society is aggrieved, they are seeing injustices, they have to pay for jobs, they go to hospitals, they are not treated, they are asked for bribes on the roads, the policemen harass them, they know what they're going to do. Anybody can tell them anything and they'll believe it. Do you see how dangerous this is for us as a country? Even for you as leaders. You can't police human beings. They will naturally gravitate towards you if you're doing the right thing. So populism is a result, and a very dangerous result, of some of these unethical practices in our society. An aggrieved society will easily believe a populist leader who is riding on the grievances already in society, who is riding on the injustices in society, and they will be believed. They will be believed because they have no option. They have no option. Even what is obvious won't be obvious for them because they're just tired. They are hopeless. So we should avoid a situation where a citizen is hopeless. Hopelessness is bad. When you lose hope, you don't believe things are. That is very dangerous for us as leaders and also for the citizens. Criminal syndicates and extremist groups, there was a symbiotic relationship between criminal gangs and some within the security sector, the Kawukumi that were weaved out, the President always talked about. Foreign interests, there's a bill being mooted in Parliament, I hope you're aware, to address some of these issues. Where they have interest, they will always use certain people to try and destabilize systems. Officers, I cannot emphasize that because you know that even better than myself, that there are always foreign interests waiting to have a loophole to penetrate. So let's not give them an opportunity to come and destabilize our country. It's Ugandans, we're Ugandans. There's nobody who can have a better interest over Uganda than ourselves. Who of you loves Kenya? I find it, do you have officers from other countries? Or you don't have this time? Okay. Because I was going to ask them, who of them loves Uganda better now that they are studying for here? You can't. Each time we went out to do those military courses with Afande Kusasira, we always looked forward to coming home. So there's nobody who's going to stabilize Uganda or who is interested in seeing the welfare or economic transformation of Uganda than the Ugandan. It's not there. Even me, how would I love another country better than my homeland? So let's keep that at the back of our mind and know that our actions will yield either positive or negative consequences on our population. History confirms that injustice, often more than mere poverty, is primarily a catalyst for conflict. Officers, you know that. I don't have to emphasize it. Whether citizens believe that security systems are unjust, the judiciary is corrupt, or accountability organizations like mine are corrupt, this kind of injustices fuel the population to take matters into their own hands. Many times we post the good work that we have done, and you read the comments from the citizens, and you really wonder what kind of citizenry do we have. So in the society, we must be mindful, and let's not suppress them. You don't have to say anything. No, once they say it, let them say it. We only have to encourage them to say it in the right form, not to say it with the hope of getting a solution. Don't just, say things where there's no solution. But we must buy their confidence, knowing that if I went to so I will get what I want. I will find justice. And I want to say that General Kachungra had that when we were in the army, when we were in the court martial, all of those of us who have known him, we know that if something is before General Kachungra, you will need justice. I don't know whether he has changed with time. He was changing. So I'm just giving a history of what he used to be. Is it better?
He's actually better than that.
And yet, no wonder, by the way, that now he's the chair of court martial. There's nobody who deserves it like General Kachungra, because I know he's a very highly ethical person back in the day. So injustice does not necessarily mean that action, it can also be inaction. Failing to do what is right. Failing to take his duties seriously. And I say this, in a joking way, but friends, people must have the confidence that they will find justice before you. Have you heard people who meet you and say, hey, Kasanje, we'll even talk it to the president. But you see, they are happy. They are confident that he has listened and he will work on it. Whether he does it or not, and that's what leadership calls for. All of us should be at that point where people say that if General Kachungra, or I never worked with Dr. Kusasira, I don't want him to take offense because I'm praising. I find it Kachungra, because I worked very closely for so many years with General Kachungra. But I also know that Dr. Kusasira is very serious when it comes to his work. He will joke around with you, but when he gets to punish you, you will wonder if this is the person you have been joking with. Then I've seen those who haven't clapped and I'm writing their names. So no, but seriously, I know that when it comes to work, the hakuna mchezo. So injustice does not necessarily mean that the action, it can also be not. Friends, I am forgetting see what? Pensions, chief of pensions and what? And gratuity. That was my boss. When I was working with the military veterans, that was my boss. I worked with the military veterans. I'm the one who started the Veterans Legal Aid Clinic for you. And I wish it could be supported because it helped the ordinary, private, those other ranks. It's hard for them to understand the way society, transition into society after they have retired. In that clinic, my boss is there, he will tell you we did a lot of work for them. And I'm happy that I worked with him. He's also a very ethical person. I worked with him, he was my boss, he was the chief of pension and gratuity while I was the head of the legal aid clinic, the principal legal officer. So I know that I know what I'm talking about is I don't know if the pensions and gratuity now stabilize. With your leadership, it was very stable. But we met some men who are cowards to go and visit officers, and I always brought them to you. That was very unethical. This is lower rank. Say, Madam, you escort me. How can I escort you to go and should be of concern to you. And I find you know that happened. Yeah, that happened. If citizens perceive that justice is only for the rich or expensive or skewed towards only those that have power, it makes a fertile ground for conflict that will have external forces coming into as a catalyst for conflict in society. We have examples, ladies and gentlemen. In 2011, protests along across North Africa and the Middle East were driven partly by public anger over corruption. Although the narrative out there is that the Arab Spring was driven by external forces, the reality is that there were internal grievances. There were internal grievances that were exploited. So the onus is on us not to leave those gaps where we can have external influences to destabilize our country. In Tunisia also, the uprising was triggered by a street vendor who felt the system was unjust and corrupt. That single incident sparked protests that eventually toppled governments across the region. This shows how governance failures can escalate into national instability. Even if we know that sometimes these are instigated by foreign interests, those interests will not have fertile ground to do their bidding if there are no legitimate grievances to exploit. Officers, please take note of that. There's also the Nigeria's example. The Boko Haram landed on fertile ground to exploit grievances among marginalized communities. When citizens lose faith in government, extremist groups often show up. And of course, we have young people also who are not very knowledgeable. Somewhere I talk about, we'll get there. Impending economic development, corruption deters investment, skews markets, and renders public spending ineffective, leading to substandard infrastructure and poor service delivery as well. I'm on 4.4, as well as high unemployment. Economic hardships directly contributes to crime, social unrest, and stability. No investor would wish to invest in an economy where there is high perception of corruption. Corruption is a destroyer. It destroys the incentive structure in an economy. When there is corruption, the economy is unpredictable. When there is corruption, and really coming from a country, this is international, see the Transparency International grading of Uganda. When we go out there, you feel small. You want to speak with confidence. For example, I was elected as the first Vice President of the African Ombudsman and Mediators Association, brings all ombudsmen across the African region. But when you're talking, you see people, in a rector saying, but your country is not doing well. It's not doing well. You just, you're speaking a lot of English, but you know that they are pointing at you directly. Breakdown of social order and vigilantism. When formal mechanisms of justice are deemed corrupt or ineffective, citizens may resort to self-help. When the population wanted, I just told you about the guy, the role in political instability, political corruption. Political corruption, including vote bribing, misuse of state resources during elections, and institutional manipulation, is an acute security threat. Perceptions of electoral unfairness destroy faith in democratic processes, leading to political unrest, protests, and instability. What are the root causes of unethical practices? Moral decadency. I cannot overemphasize that. The weakening of core societal values, especially in Africa. Societal values like honest, we have to be honest, responsibility. Back in my younger days, when I was visiting my grandmother in the village, and we delayed at the well, I says, where are you coming from? I found her neighbor, she was from the one, she had a jerrycan, and then I had to first take her in. That would be an excuse for your delay. There was a sense of responsibility while we were growing up, and I'm sure you'd say the same. Patriotism makes misconduct easier to rationalize. People don't love their country. There's a time I traveled to the States, and I gave this example in the earlier lessons I came to here. I was in the US, and I was late to go and, go to the counter to go and check, and I kept running. And then, of course, when they closed the counter, they closed it. And there was a white lady behind me, walking systematically. And when they got there, they let her in. I said, but I came before. Oh, Ugandan way, no defend yourself. I came before. They said, she's American. She's American. I'm not American, so I have to keep time. I must be on time. There's no excuse. But have you seen our scaries here? Either on supermarkets, those that guard, a white man comes and they even wear, and they will check your car. You've seen it?
Yes.
Patriotism. We have not made our people to love each other. The way they speak to each other. And that can be taught. That has to be taught. Just like you're in class listening to me, you must teach your officers. They have to see it from you. You have to treat them the way you want to be treated. And then they'll pass it on to their children. They'll pass it on to their families. What you inculcate in them is what you pass on. The values I hold today, I learned from the military. Respect, honor. When I went by then my boss was Honorable. When she would enter, I would be the only one standing, and everybody is sitting. So with time they say, hey, when she enters, if the deputy is standing, then all of us must stand up. At that time, I passed on from you. So it's important that we pass on these values that we got from our communities. In our communities, we had strong social structures that had capacity to pass on social values to everyone. But with westernization, go, and you let your children treat you like that in your home. Hey now, hey. Because we are breaking. Our culture is our culture. If he's in America or wherever you take your child to study, that hey, that can stay there. But those small unwritten values are the ones that build society. That's the respect that you find in the organizations you work. They're small, but they're what matters. It's not what you study here that's going to shape our society. Those small values that I want to beseech you, officers, to pass on to your troops that are going to build our society. Greed and materialism in our society, an excessive focus on personal wealth motivates individuals to gain at any cost to the public good. Primitive accumulation of wealth, it stopped being corruption for survival because today it's the rich that steal. It's those that have. Yes, I'm here to tell you that. It is those, the accounting officers, the accountants, big names that are thieves. And there are fewer people. If we decisively dealt with them, then our country would be better at speak and then do something else. Everybody must be, if everybody is doing it, then why shouldn't I do it? That's wrong. Some people are primitive, they do it out of, I don't know. You must get it. I'm not saying live a poor life. You have a good ride from Kampala to here, it makes your back comfortable. Do I have to have 4 of those lined up or 2 or 3? And there's a person, there's one politician I visited, their country home. My God, it's like State House. And I went around that politician's place, there were, mark sheets. And I said, this is not right. Everybody around you can't be in a poor state. And enforcement and weak oversight allow unethical behaviors to flourish without consequences, sending a dangerous message that wrongdoing is permissible. We should make corruption costly. And really, I want to applaud the CDF. I think he has started on a good front with fighting corruption. That one, you give it up to him. Ideological disorientation, a lack of shared national values and purpose leads individuals to prioritize legitimate gain over national interests. Social normalization, government efforts and the need for a societal shift. The government of Uganda has implemented significant measures, including strengthening legal frameworks. By the way, we have the best laws all over the world at enforcement. I think enforcement is well done. But in the laws, everything is written on paper. Good enough if we manage to catch the corrupt and lock them up. Now you're going to ask me, why aren't you doing it? Because they're very slippery. Our standard of law is high. Criminal standard, the lawyers are here know that it is very high. Beyond reasonable doubt. If there is any doubt, then the person goes scot-free. At one point, actually, we had just resorted to now recoveries because everybody fears to be embarrassed and appear before court. So we would say, refund the money you have stolen because we were frustrated. We couldn't meet the standard. Witnesses don't want, I think because we lack patriotism, people are cowards to come up and say, yes, I saw you doing this, or you did this, this is where you told me to sign, I didn't have to sign. You will look for witnesses, you will not have substantive witnesses. So ultimately, society itself must assume responsibility for self-regulation. As the Inspectorate of Government, we have been carrying out campaigns to rally the public to demand accountability from their leaders. On the PDM of disbursements, PDM is a socio-economic scheme by government to reduce income inequalities within our societies by transferring money directly to the poor. Unfortunately, even this money is being stolen. I remember back in the day, I don't know whether General Kashunga remembers, somebody had stolen money for a coffee. General, no, Ghana. Do you remember? Yes, I remember at CLS. This is the other ranks. General wanted to buy a coffee, but she never liked it. I don't think there's been such a business again. Because there was strict punishment. People knew. If you imagine you have a person who has a gun and you are let loose and you are given liberty to do whatever you want, shall we survive him? I'm happy that they all shook their heads of what managers. So that kind of discipline is what we need also in the other civilian world. Strategic solutions. This is the last bit for you to ask me questions. I'm going to talk about some suggested strategic solutions. We need a whole of society approach. It's no longer about institutions, because we can't be everywhere. So can policemen. We can't have every Ugandan having a policeman or an officer. It's not possible. So addressing this strategic threat demands a comprehensive collective effort. Formulate and galvanize the national psyche and consensus around national interests and values. The Ministry of ICT and National Guidance needs to craft a national guidance policy that clearly spells out our national interests. In previous years, before students went to the university, they underwent chakamchaka, not so. That chakamchaka was so good. It was a leadership training that was meant to arouse a sense of consciousness, sense of duty and love for the country. And it helped the young people know where they fitted in their national agenda. This has significantly reduced. I'm happy that I'm talking to high-ranking officers that are going to take on the leadership of this country in the various aspects. So please, when you get there, this should be recommended because it is good. And I'm here to talk about, because I know it works. It worked on me. By the time I came to the Ministry of Defense, you imagine when you're a lawyer, your mind is, also all you think you're very brilliant. I hope the lawyers here don't think so. But when you're a lawyer who has just finished campus, you think you're brilliant, you know so much. So if you go to a military and they have a code of conduct and they train you and line you on what is expected of you, and you cannot change from that. You can't change from that. So this grounding is very important for our young people. Secondly, we need a value-based education. Ethical values, integrity, civic responsibility, and patriotism must be cultivated from childhood within the education system. We need to move away from the kind of education system that just pumps knowledge into a person passing exams, but to values-based. An educated person who is unethical is very dangerous, like I told you, compared to a person who is not educated. Then also we need to strengthen professional ethics. All professions, military, civil service, judiciary must reinforce strict ethical codes, discipline, and professional pride to ensure institutional integrity. Judges are perpetuating injustice in society, security officers protecting the wrong elements in society. We had people complaining to us that some police officers who are colluding with the criminals in society. I'm happy that the President has had a firm stance on that. Enhance accountability. Oversight bodies require improved resources, independence, and modern investigative tools. Accountability must be effective and credible. I'm just giving you a few of them, and then you're going to give me others, and I'm going to note them down, and I'm going to go and implement them. So, leveraging technology, digital systems, e-procurements, e-reports to reduce human interface is good. But on the other hand, it may create more problems. Imagine a hacker or a bank robber who wants to steal over $1 million US. They won't go to the bank and pick it because they can't. That's a lot of money. But remember, these systems are run by human beings. What you tell them to do is what they do. So the easier thing is to work on the ethical conduct, moral conduct. It is bad, I will not do it. It is good, I will do it. These systems, yes, people talk about technology, you can't beat technology. It is a system that is set by human beings, right? And therefore it can be compromised. Strengthening civic responsibility, citizens must view corruption as a threat to national security and collective prosperity and refuse to normalize unethical conduct in their community. We should avoid a situation where corruption becomes the norm in our society. That is dangerous. For people to think that they can get away with anything. After all, police won't follow. About said, that is very, very dangerous. What are we going to do? Take on our responsibilities. Officers, when you get an oath, please go to your villages, teach. Let's start in your homes, okay? Even within your home, your limited space. Teach, speak as much as you can. Enlighten your communities on the dangers of unethical conduct in our society. Enlighten them because you are more experienced and you have seen this. Your understanding is better than them. So you don't have to be a deputy IGG or be a CDF to enlighten people on the dangers of corruption. Use the opportunities that you have. Use the environments. Whenever I meet young people, parents with their young children on phones or iPads, I tell them, I say, why would you get your child to this extent? I remember one of my children was on holiday and the friend had an iPhone, 16 at that time. Talk to the parent. I said, do you think us we don't have money we can't afford? What are you putting in the child's mind if you give them an iPhone 16? What else are they looking forward to? So we're going to have to quite make it for the good of our society. Don't say it does not concern you. Sometimes we are deceived that we will have our children get a very good education, for some of you big people who can afford. But they're coming back to live in the same society where we are. Who are they going to work with? Who are they going to live with? So it is going to be a collective effort for all of us to cultivate these values in our society. And the ideological orientation, that's the last one. There must be a shared commitment to the common good, ensuring both leaders and citizens consistently place national interest above personal gain. Patriotism. The love of country must be continuous. This must be a continuous discussion. Why should it come once in a while? I like that you do Tarehe Sita. All of you excite us with Tarehe Sita. We are happy. We do today until another February 6th. I want to recommend, I don't know, that please the bosses, the doctor and the general, please, why can't you have this discussion? There might be the activities because they're expensive, but the discussions. There used to be a civil, military, CIMIC. There was CIMIC in the is it still there? Yes. What do you do? The society is calling for, what does CIMIC do? Somebody tell me what CIMIC does. Put up your hand and tell me what CIMIC does. What are the terms of reference? Can you tell us?
CIMIC. Civil military. We, first of all, that department.
If it is still what it used to be, then your services are needed in society. They are needed at addressing the RDCs. You need to go out there. You need to come up with a roadmap and speak. This civic education is important. Who says something matters? If it is from the military, our citizens will also welcome it. That civil military engagement is needed now more than ever in our society. So I want to recommend that please take it on and make some recommendations. We're also writing to the chief, and we hope that we will yield results. Legitimacy of the fight against corruption, legal and moral, illegal and irregular means to tackle corruption have the reverse effect of legitimizing corruption. Okay, corruption within the defense sector is particularly dangerous. Why? Because the military is entrusted with protecting the state itself. When corruption affects defense institutions, the consequences can be severe, dire. Research shows that 62% of countries face high-risk corruption in defense sectors, particularly in procurement and personnel systems. Common mistakes we observed include inflated procurement contracts, ghost soldiers on payroll, very dangerous. You imagine deploying a battalion, but in essence it's a platoon. And you think you have a battalion and the people are nowhere. You can imagine at a strategic level, if you are making such decisions, and you think that you have a full battalion, you know that better than myself. The version of military supplies, I know that my boss, Kachunga, wouldn't want to talk about it, but once prosecuted a case in General Court Martial on such a matter. Misuse of defense budgets, instead of improving welfare of soldiers, the money is stolen. And I want to appreciate the CDF that has come out to have a strong stance against corruption in the forces. You need to clap for him because he's catching up with you. If you are corrupt, General Kachunga will have a lot of clients in a few. What is the course ending?
But we can extend to the same.
That's the corruption.
But it's not unethical. So we talked about the legal and moral. That's one of the examples. It's morally uncomfortable, but it's not illegal. Not so? Because you'll get more information when we extend the course. Please extend. I am willing to come back over and over again.
Saturation point.
Point of satire, where you can't take it out. Okay, so global examples. I want to give you examples because you must know that these have happened elsewhere and we have had devastating effects. Before the collapse of Afghanistan government in 2011, corruption within the security sector had severely weakened the army. There were reports of ghost soldiers, stolen fuel, and diverted salaries. There were soldiers who had earned for a long time, who had not earned for a long time. No wonder when the Taliban were approaching Kabul. Do you remember the action of the soldiers? They were instead welcoming them. Eh? There was no resistance from the soldiers because simply there were internal grievances that the Taliban took advantage of. They all wilted away when an opportunity presented itself. Imagine a ragtag group of the Taliban defeating the whole army. When institutions lack integrity, even large armies can collapse quietly. Another example is the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Eastern DRC. Of course, you know that we have moved in to protect our interests. Imagine a hungry soldier. In the DRC, it is said, and this is research, it said that some soldiers went unpaid for some periods because money had been diverted. This contributed to indiscipline, predatory behavior towards civilians, and weakened operational effectiveness. The result has unfortunately led to prolonged instability. Still, I want to give it up to the military. I remember when I was in the military, the people who are always first paid were because we were on contract. So the contract staff and the soldiers, because the contract staff are on the strength of the soldier, so we're always paid on time. And then our friends from public service, what is Osama? So the military, the government has always prioritized the military because I think they understand the ramifications. And please clap for your government. Do not forget that you are a general of UPDF in this government. Next government you could be a private. You must be grateful that you are a general in this. Yeah, people forget. They think they will be general. Do you still remember the generals of Amin? Are they there?
That government will make us private, will not see.
Yes.
And
that's why we tell public servants, I'm an deputy IGG in this government, not in the next one. So you must ensure that you protect against and what we have been able to achieve as a country over the years. Prevention of instability is infinitely cheaper than conflict management. I will not dive into that because security leaders must therefore recognize corruption and unethical practices not as administrative faults but as strategic security threats and risks. I conclude. Uganda has secured peace and stability through decades of effort, yet this stability rests not only on military strength but equally on trust in institutions, equitable governance, and integrity in leadership. If unethical practices become deeply embedded, they will systemically erode the foundations of the state, weakening institutions, intensifying grievances, distorting development, and creating conditions that directly threaten national security, including those that are going to be exploited by our enemies as well as internal populist leaders who have nothing to offer but to exploit people who are aggrieved. People who are aggrieved. If you find a population that is aggrieved, then the external forces and internal forces will exploit that. Unethical practices must be understood and confronted as strategic threats to our security, stability, and prosperity. The responsibility for this challenge is universal. It rests with public institutions, the private sector, civil society, and every individual citizen. By reinforcing our ethical foundations, strengthening our accountability, and promoting integrity and patriotism, we can safeguard our national and regional achievements and secure a stable, prosperous future for all. We shall need the resolve and the courage that we had in tackling HIV, political instability in Karamoja, northern Uganda, politically inspired violence in the 60s, to be able to tackle the scourge of corruption in Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for listening to me. Tuze wano mu ssomero ery'amaanyi, ettendekero ery'amaanyi eriyigiriza abakulembeze ab'enjawulo mu magye gye bayita National Defence College, nga tuze okubabuulirira ku empisa embi eziri mu ggwanga lyaffe erireetedde empisa embi ezireetedde obuli bw'enguzi okukola ki okweyongera. Tuli basanyufu nnyo kubanga aba officers babadde bagezi nnyo, first of all bagezi nnyo, ate babadde bali very inquisitive, baagala kumanya, ate nabo ne batuwabula ku bintu bye tusobola okukola okulwanyisa obuli bw'enguzi nga tuyita mu mpisa. Era tubalambulikiridde obubi obuliwo bwe baleka obuli bw'enguzi ne buyingira ne bugenda mu magye. Ne tubagamba nti obuli bw'enguzi bubi nnyo nnyo nnyo, naye ate bubi nnyo 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 bwe bugenda mu magye, kubanga awo buba bucompromisinga obukuumi bwaffe ng'eggwanga. Era eggwanga ligenda mu katyabago bw'ebanga obuli bw'enguzi buyingidde mu magye. Naye tuli basanyufu nti bakimanyi ate nabo bakyekengera, bamanyi nti ekyo kisiyinza kukkirizibwa okubeera mu magye. Ate ne tusiima nnyo omukulu w'amagye okulwanyisa obuli bw'enguzi avuddeyo ng'abwogerera titajja bukkiriza, ate tumulabye ne byazaakola ng'alwana obuli bw'enguzi. Era ffe nga IG tuli beeteefuteefu okukwatiriza wamu naye tulabike nga obuli bw'enguzi bukendedde mu ggwanga, si mu magye wokka naye mu ggwanga.
Okwogerako n'abasirikale mu ngeri ng'eno kigasa kitya abasirikale security y'eggwanga ne bannayuganda? Omusirikale
muntu mukulu nnyo mu ggwanga kubanga be bakola intelligence, be bafuna ebibeerawo mu ggwanga. Omulimu gw'abasirikale gwakukuuma eggwanga against external threats obuki obulumbaganyi obuva mitala gy'amayanja n'obuli mu ggwanga. Ate ne tubajjukiza nti abantu bebayitanga political populists, bali abakulembeze aboogera abantu bye baagala okuwulira, balaba embeera etali nnungi mu ggwanga ne bagikattirizako ne bagyezimbako ne basanga nga walimu obutabanguzi mu ggwanga. Wewaawo waliwo ebintu ebitatambula bulungi, tubiraba tubimanyi ate tuli mu bikolako, naye ate abamagye bwe batatwegattako mu kulwanyisa buno obuli bw'enguzi. Kati those populist leaders abakulembeze abaagala nnyo okukyamuukiriza abantu, abakulembeze abakyamuukiriza nnyo abantu bajja kukozesa that gap, ebintu obuli bw'enguzi bagambe ate osange ng'eggwanga lyaffe luli lutabankubukubu. Tuze tubiraba bibaddewo mu mawanga amalala, n'olwekyo mbajjukiziza omulimu gwabwe nga security men, nga officers, nga ab'amagye nti kino ekintu ekyokulwanyisa obuli bw'enguzi balina okibeeramu kubanga kyabwe nabwo kibakwatako ate kubanga kyo kigenda okubakuuma. Naye mbajjukiza n'okubajjukiza nti bajjeno oba officers mu magye gano, n'olwekyo balina okugalwanirira balabe nti teri external forces eziyitira mu buli bw'enguzi eziyingiramu. Olugiba luggale kubanga bw'eba tebagadde olugi olwo eggwanga lyonna lijja kusaanyaawo ate nabo naffe ffenna tusaanyeewo kubanga bw'okkiriza ezo empisa embi unethical practices ne zikuyingira n'otunda eggwanga lyo, external forces zijja gamba ono omuntu waffe kubanga ye yatuyamba ffena tukafiiramu. N'olwekyo tufunye obudde bulungi nnyo wano kubanga bakitegedde ate nabo badde bakimanyi nti they have a role to play mu bino bitubadde twogerako.
Ekyabannamagye okwanja ebyobugagga byabwe
kakati ekyo president mujjukira emabegako yagamba tutuule ne attorney general omuwaabi wa gavumenti, ssaabawabuzi wa gavumenti, tulabe engeri gye tusobola okikolamu. Tiyagamba nti tebanja bintu byabwe, naye yagamba tufune engeri gye bagenda okikolamu. Kati tugenda kutuula n'abakulembeze tulabe engeri gye kiyinza okukolebwamu.
Oyogeddeko ku
kita compromising security y'eggwanga.
Oyogeddeko ku kyokubeera nga you end up catching the small fish away from the big fish who are involved in corruption tendencies.
Munnange ekyo era nga bwe tuzze twogera ababbi abanene ba big fish oba empuuta ze mwagala nti tukwate oluusi zituzibwalira. Lwaki? Kubanga empuuta ngezi nnyo tezirekaawo ki? Tezirekawo mukululo, n'olwekyo ate buno mukene bukola ki? Bubeera n'omukululo gwe tugoberera ne tukwata kubanga baminisita tebasayingira sense. Ate tuli mu demokrasiya, bwe tugenda mu kooti batugamba muleete obujulizi. obwemalirira si nti kifaanana kiti kiri muleete obujulizi obwemalirira so n'olwekyo n'osanga ate nga tuleeta mukene naye kati tunoonya empuuta IGG anoonya mpuuta era essaawa yonna mugenda kulaba nga tubawaayo mpuuta tulina ne tuze tulabye tuzeekengedde essaawa yonna tubawa mpuuta era mulinde mwebale zigenda kuva mu Victoria